Mana Mana. The Muppets is directed by James Bobbin, written by Jason Segel and Nicholas Stoller. This movie also stars Jason Segel, Amy Adams, Chris Cooper, and all the Muppets you know and love, joined by a new Muppet played by Peter Linz. Now, the Muppets actually kind of takes place in real time. This takes place at a time when the Muppets are, not famous anymore, and they're just pretty much living separately. They've been out of the showbiz thing for a long time, but then when the old Muppet Studios threatened, and this guy played by Chris Cooper wants to kind of like just drill oil under the Muppet Studio, three fans composed of Walter, Gary, his brother played by Jason Segel, and his girlfriend Mary, played by Amy Adams, go out and try to find the Muppets, bring them back together so they can have one more show to raise enough money to save the Muppet Studio. Now, in an era when there's so many reboots happening, they're pretty much a dime a dozen, and usually these movies are rebooted just kind of for a nostalgia factor, not necessarily for any lasting impression. Like, there are very few of these reboots happening nowadays that are really done in order to create a new franchise, like a long-lasting franchise. But the Muppets here is different because this is a really important kind of reboot. Because the Muppets are pretty much part of culture already, but it is a fact of life that they were not as popular at a certain point in time, and trying to revitalize them in this movie, it's really important that if this succeeds, it means the Muppets are still relevant. They can keep going and still be a part of our culture. But if this movie does not end up working, it kind of makes a good case for the Muppets not being valid anymore. However, not only do the Muppets return this movie, but their magic also returns. The Muppets is a great, great movie. It's so full of joy and laughter and passion. I noticed it has a very similar feel to the Muppet movie from 1979 because, like that movie, this one, the Muppets here are not acting. They are playing, quote unquote, themselves, and it really is about them kind of getting into show business again and just finding themselves. Ironically, though, here in the Muppets, like the puppets don't really look old or anything. They don't look worn. In fact, they look pretty spanking new. But that's not really a complaint. It's nice to have them this clean and stuff for new audiences to enjoy. However, in terms of like the production design, the sets and stuff, I was actually really surprised to see that this movie is on a very small scale. I was expecting them kind of like with their big budget and whatever to really be all grand again, make this grand entrance for the Muppets, but instead they make it a really small personal thing, and I really, really appreciate that. And overall, the look of this movie, it's just very cheerful, it's just populated by so much, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but like this movie is so anti-cynical, it's just the way things are constructed, the way things look, it just really feels like trip down memory lane, but they don't want to make it like a sad trip down memory lane. Now, just like the first Muppets movie, the thing that really got me here was the music. I love the music here. The music here is amazing. It's probably the best music the Muppets have had since the first movie. And the soundtrack to the Muppets here is kind of divided into different components. There's the original songs, there's the covers, and then there's the established songs that they just kind of put into the movie. And all these song choices are really, really spot on. Especially like the original songs, which again, this movie almost made me cry. Because it just captures that feeling again, that old Muppet magic, nostalgia waves hit me. And I'm gonna read through the soundtrack again here because there's a lot to go through. The one almost made me cry was Life's a Happy Song, which is pretty much like the theme song of this movie, and it's just really fantastic, just the way it's written, the way it's composed, the way it sounds. Like this melody here is just, it's amazing. It's very catchy, it's very touching. Pictures in My Head is another really good song that Kermit sings about, missing the gang. Me Party is sung by Amy Adams and Miss Piggy, which is a really nice song also. The one sung by Chris Cooper is, I think this is the one called Let's Talk About Me. And any movie where you can see Chris Cooper rapping, watch that movie. Of course, Manor Muppet is the song that won the Oscar. It's a really, really great song. It actually stands for more than what you might think if you listen to it independently before watching this movie. It actually stands for a lot. And the covers they have here are actually quite entertaining. There's like a couple. There's just Forget You by CeeLo Green, covered by Camilla the Chicken and the other chickens. And it's just really funny because I like how everyone knows that this is an obscene song, and they get around that by making chickens sing it. That's great. Also, there's a barbershop quartet version of Smells Like Teen Spirit. That's genius, okay? That's genius. And my problem with Muppets from Space was that it used music that wasn't, original, and it just kept using that music. Here, they use a music that's already been established, but, they don't keep using it. Thus, when they do use it, there's an impact. And, the biggest example of this is, We Built This City by Starship, and that's great. But the absolute standout musical performance here, and this might be a spoiler, I don't know, but I just have to talk about it. Rainbow Connection. They sing Rainbow Connection. Oh my god! Like for any long-time Muppet fan, especially those who are big fans of the first one, hearing Rainbow Connection is just enough. Like it's worth the price of admission. Now, regarding the plot of this movie, it's actually really interesting because it feels like a combination of both the Muppet movie and the Muppets Take Manhattan. The Muppet movie, obviously, because of them trying to get back in the show business, but then the Muppets Take Manhattan because it's them encountering these very real world problems that they're not famous anymore and no one wants to watch them anymore. And there's a lot of light humor in this movie also. It's very, like I kind of forgot for a while there that the humor of the Muppets really is light. So it's not laugh out loud funny again, but it's very good natured. And there is tons of heart in this movie. Like there's just so much going on here. There's so much emotion actually. Just the very fact that the Muppets are trying to cope with them not being famous anymore and them having lots of baggage from the past. It's really, really great, and you really get into these characters. What I love is that this movie is very self-referential, to the fact that it's not popular anymore, but it's very sensitive to that fact. They don't, parody it or anything. All the dialogue here really just captures these Muppets in such a real way. Again, you feel like they're actual characters, and what I like is that everything here really does have an underlying theme. Aside from the whole, trying to become famous again, it's really also about trying to fix past relationships, and trying to right the wrongs from the past. You don't see that just from the Muppets, but also with the human characters, and that's a great way to use human characters. Just don't not just pure cameos, but Jason Segel and Amy Adams in this movie, like their relationship was very, very well handled. The acting from them was actually really old school. Like nowadays you'd expect acting from actors to be all really emotional and deep and stuff, but here it really does feel like they're acting as if they were in the 1979 movie, and I really enjoy that. Speaking of the cameos, though, like cameos here are really fun because mostly because they're modern now and you kind of understand them. Dave Grohl though, Dave Grohl's in this movie. Try and spot him. James Bobbin's direction here really keeps it personal, just like the Muppets Take Manhattan. He always keeps it focused on them, and whenever songs are sung and stuff, they're not always grand and stuff. I like how the direction for the songs usually is very personal also. And James Bobbin has a really good control of the nostalgia factor here because, undoubtedly this movie has nostalgia behind it. Like, you kind of need it if you want to enjoy this movie to the max. But at the same time, he doesn't really beat you over the head with it. He keeps, a story going. It's not just pure fan service. Again, I have a couple of tiny problems with this movie. For one, I think that sometimes it focuses a bit too much on the humans than the Muppets. Like, as enjoyable as the relationship is between Jason Segel and Amy Adams, sometimes I would like to get to know the Muppets again a bit more, especially if this is like the movie to reintroduce them to a new generation. I think they kind of need to know some of these guys. There are only really a few Muppets here that the audience really gets to know. I would have liked to see more of Fozzie and Gonzo. And last time I checked, Rizzo the Rat was kind of like a main character, isn't he? And, he doesn't even get a speaking line in this movie. And about the characters, I just feel like the villain played by Chris Cooper, as good as he is in this movie, I just feel like he's kind of unnecessary. It is enough for the Muppets to, just try and regain their fame again. But, having him in the movie, it doesn't really make an impact at all. And, his rap was interesting. But in the end, The Muppets is like a great movie. Really, it's such a great return to form, and I think, objectively speaking, it might just be my favorite Muppet movie. Like even more than the first one. Although I like the music in the first one more, as a total package, this one is just it's just so much heart. Ironically, it would have actually been a great swan song. Like if they made this and it was a success, then they chose to not make any more Muppets movies. I think it would have been great in an ironic way. They just end with a beginning. And honestly, I'm gonna miss this style of entertainment because this style of entertainment is gone. And like this puppets and stuff, and this very light humor that's nowhere to be found anymore. And I am gonna miss it. So I'm going to enjoy the Muppets as much as I can while I can. Alright, so that's my review of the Muppets. Have you guys seen this movie? If you have, what do you think of it? Whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment and let's have a conversation.